Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of Game Study. Today I'm going to play a game called Please Don't Touch Anything. I have not played this game before. I don't really know that much about it. It was developed in 2015 by a group or person called Four Quarters, and I think it's a point-and-click adventure game. I'm not really sure though. So as you can see here, we're at the desk and there's already some dialogue on the screen. That's pretty much where the game starts. As soon as you load it up, this voice starts talking to you. So I guess before I even play, I'll say that I like the premise, mostly from the screenshots I've seen. Aside from the fact that it reminds me of Papers, Please, I do like games that, games are fun when there's an element of mystery to them, so just right off the bat, this game asks a lot of questions that, need to be answered. Obviously you don't want to go too far with that, you don't want to just have the game completely random and open-ended, so I'm going to assume that's not going to happen, but, we'll find out, so. Okay, so as the title suggests, the premise seems to be that we are left watching someone's desk, there's a giant red button, and we should not press it. So, we've got a red button, we've got a restart button, and we have instructions on the wall that say, grab the screwdriver, grab the hammer, work. There's some strange symbols up there. I don't know if I'm assuming that those are going to come into play. It looks like part graphical symbols, part directional keys, like a pictogram kind of thing. I don't know. I won't worry too much about it now. Okay, so restart actually restarts the game. I'm just going to keep pressing the original button. Okay, if you press it a lot, a drawer appears with the screwdriver, the button. Alright, okay, this is getting a little weird. It would appear that there's a fetus of some sort that has come out of the main button, and then the game just restarted. Okay. That's really weird. So obviously the point of this game is discovery. Like much in the sense of, I guess it kind of reminds me of also the Stanley Parable a bit. Just that it's, I guess, a strange story that you need to discover. I'm gonna hope that in the very least these elements are interconnected to some extent and not just totally random. Oh, so this time I broke the screen. So you can break different things. That's good to know. And I clicked on the question mark button. So that full screened the game. I don't know if you guys could see that because of the way the window capture was working. It full screened the game and played some very strange Illuminati type of graphics, and then the game exited. So I come back in and I got an achievement, and I now notice that there is a poster on the wall that says true question mark, and that's a picture of what popped up there. But I can now see the outline of several other types of posters on the wall just like that, which would lead me to believe that these are all they're either the endings or the pathways that this game has. So I really like that because, so from the outset, I already know what kind of game this is. It's I wouldn't call it sandbox, but the game wants you to play with it. It's giving you things to mess with and play with. You find your own way. I also noticed in the bottom left here, I don't know if this was here before or not, but these little lights are lighting up, and they seem to serve the same function as the posters on the wall, that I'm sort of unlocking or accomplishing some kind of ending or branch of the story. I don't know exactly yet, but it's nice that they can indicate actually making progress, because otherwise the game is still, I think, would still be fun to play, but it sort of would leave you wondering, you would be left wondering aimlessly with no sense of progression. Now, for all I know, this could be connected to the instructions up on the wall. That's a little hard to figure out at the moment. Yeah, there's also some formula up here. If I have to figure out some formula, I'm probably not going to spend the time to do that, at least while I'm streaming. But then again, I don't know. The game could just be trying to trick us. I'm testing out keyboard input real quick just to make sure. I would also not put it past a game like this to incorporate sort of again, almost fourth wall type mechanics. This is getting crazy now. So I shut the machine down and then restarted, and now I put in input based on these buttons. That does nothing. That does something. Yep. This game is so weird. The fact that you unlock these little ending posters may also indicate that they themselves might have clues to the other potential endings of the game. So yeah, again, in a game like this, like pretty much anything goes. Oh, I now see this. This little string of text says correct upside down. So when I'm given a spot with directional input, I'll try to remember that. And I assume I have to flip the whole thing, so it would be down right, down left, down left, down right. Okay, so yeah, in terms of like game design and stuff, it's sort of hard to talk about. I sort of knew that going into this, what kind of game this was, because like usually I try to talk about game design mechanics, but I mean, like, so as far as user interface, I mean, the point of the game is to discover the user interface, more or less. I will say what little direction the game has given us has been fine so far, mostly in the fact that it shows you what endings you've unlocked, so I think that's a nice little thing. Aside from that, though, obviously the controls do not inhibit anything, it's just a point and click. The story definitely draws you in. Well, it at least makes you want to figure out what comes next or what the other options are. And I guess the feedback loop is just figure out a new way to get an ending. Again, it's like a very specific style of game, so it's hard to make judgments on that. But I would say so far, if you like the Stanley Parable, this guy's talking again. If you like the Stanley Parable, this would definitely be your kind of game. The obvious theme in this game is that you really have to study and read, because if you don't, well, all the hidden little answers are here somewhere. So the interesting thing about this is, as we uncover new branches, I have to keep in mind that we have this old hammer that we can use, and it's possible that the hammer produces different results for every single combination of panels, but it also might not. That is an interesting observation, that it looks like the number 42 when this panel is up, and I could certainly see them going for something like that, so that's also something to keep in mind. Aha! Interesting. Alright, so you can also use the screwdriver on this tiny little switch compartment up here, which short circuits and opens up this sequence of numbers. It looks like about a 9-digit digital code can go here. Okay, so if that's open, this inputs numbers down there. Leonardo Paisano is nickname of Fibonacci. I hope you looked that up, because if you knew that off the top of your head, that's insane. Alright, so I have the written out Fibonacci sequence 11235813. And that would be, well, that's only 8, so 8 and 13 is 20 to 21. So we have 1, 1, 2, and I guess that's what they wanted. They wanted the Fibonacci. Very interesting. So now we've got some sort of creature taking over the Earth. I guess the Fibonacci sequence is the sign for ultimate evil. I don't know. Oh no, we can, oh man. So we can shine this like ultraviolet thing all over the panel. This is insane. I'm gonna assume some of this is meant to just confuse you, to confuse the player to some extent. This is a level of dedication that I was not expecting. City Boom. Well, this came from somewhere. So it's a little confusing how they seem to work in these alternate, like, endings. So I don't know if it's based on what I'm doing in the game. It would seem after I restart a fixed amount of times, it's giving me these alternate little scenarios. Now, stuff like that is frustrating because I have no idea how I got to that. Like, there's some connection between the paths. So I know that to open up certain panels, it's like, oh yeah, I get the screwdriver and I can open up that panel. All these panels sort of open up anywhere they want, and they display whatever they want. So you really lose any sort of mental mapping between where the panels appear, how they appear, and how to get back to certain panel. I would say it's mentally exhausting to try and keep track of how you pull up all the panels. But minor gripe, I suppose. I mean, obviously there's a lot of random stuff. I at least like using up puzzle pieces to know that I don't need that piece anymore. And now we have an actual direct Papers, Please reference, which I'll give them credit for doing, considering the fact that the game already evokes that emotion. Oh, City Boom, I wanted to play this again. Oh, I messed it up. Nope. Oh my god, I had 1 block left. 1 block in City Boom. That's a heartbreaker. I think I've clearly experienced most of the game as was intended. There's a lot of endings missing, and there's a lot of pieces that I've not discovered, but I think I know for the most part what the game is trying to get me to do. And I'm sure there is, hopefully there's some overarching connection to the story. I guess at the end of the day, this There probably might not be. So I guess this is some sort of experiment chamber. I don't know. Is it fun? Yes. It's also very frustrating. So again, the player loop is basically just tinker with the buttons until something happens, and then try to solve the puzzle. So that's very satisfying in a sense, but the satisfaction has diminishing returns because in the beginning there's a lot of things to play with. As you play with more of them, you open up more of the branches, and you realize that the remaining branches are the more esoteric puzzles that are just like kind of WTF moments of like, all right, clearly some code goes here, but there's just so many codes. There's so many potential codes and passwords that it sort of starts to become not fun. So this is definitely the kind of game that is fun to play. It would be fun to play like if someone was watching, and so it's definitely, it has the element of mystique or discovery. Like regardless of how frustrating the puzzles are, you want to see what puzzles come next. There's a lot of random branches in the game. The fact that I stumbled across the blood fetus as one of the very first endings was probably the strangest so far. So yeah, I guess my only really remaining complaint is just the arbitrary connection between all the panels. But that does lead to some frustration in trying to remember how to get down all the different branches. Whereas something like in the Stanley Parable, the journey you took was mostly dictated by your physical movement through the scene. And spatial memory is much more reliable and accurate than just plain old like numbers and information. So this game does have some of that spatial element, but the fact of the matter is there's still a lot of arbitrary connection. Whereas if you were playing Stanley Parable, you can remember, to get to this branch, I need to walk down this hallway, then this hallway, and you can actually like walk through it in your mind. You don't get that same ability with this game because you're not moving anywhere, you're just pressing buttons, so you lose a lot of that ability. That being said, it would seem that I've played through about half of the endings, and considering that, I was still able to find the panels relatively well. And at the end of the day, I think a game like this, they expect people to go online and ask questions and talk to each other, and that's fine. It's a game about discovery, and to implement that sort of like, I don't know if I would say community element, but it's obviously going to get people talking. Someone's going to find this one secret thing, and then they'll stumble across it, and they'll tell someone else, and everyone kind of comes together to figure out all the puzzles. Although I'm sure someone solved it all themselves with enough time on their hands, so there's also that. But other stuff in the game, the sound design is fine. The sound does what it needs to. There's nothing too special there. It stays out of the way. And interface, again, point and click adventure. It's hard to mess that up. There's no controls to worry about, at least in that sense. Dealing with player loss, the game resets quickly enough. I wouldn't say, again, with how strange this game is or how unique it is, there's not a lot to deal with there. You either figure out the puzzle or you don't. So it's not like a game where you die and you have to replay a puzzle over and over. So that's not really a concern either. And other than that, I think that's about it. Going down my list here of what I tried to cover, the game doesn't really have level design in particular. It's just a series of puzzles. So it's a series of interesting puzzles. The graphics are nice, they tie things together, and it's really just a game about discovery, and if you like that kind of game, it's right up your alley. So yeah, it's a fun game. Give it a shot. It's only a few bucks on Steam, and I played it for an hour. I could see getting another couple of hours out of it, so depending on how you value your time, that may or may not be worth it for you. I'm sure you could also pick it up on a sale, but it's one of those games that doesn't really have replay value. So once you discover all the endings, I'm assuming that's about it. But it's about the experience that came out of that. So if that's fun and interesting for you, then you will find this game enjoyable. So I think that wraps up my little game study today. This has been Please Don't Touch Anything. Once again, developed by Four Quarters, a story-based narrative point-and-click adventure game, something to that regard. As always, thank you for anyone watching, tuning in, anything like that. I think I will probably only do one more game study next week, again, Thursday at 2 p.m. And then after that, I'm going to take a little break to sort of reflect on what I've done so far with this little series and just decide if I still want to continue doing it, how often I want to do it, what other kind of games I want to play. I want to take a break and get some feedback on everything in general, and decide if it's the best kind of format for me. And so I at least wanted to start with a solid 4-week, 1-month block, and then I figured I would go from there. So again, if you want to see me play games again, next Thursday, 2 p.m., that's my general time, and you can always follow me, Twitch TV/AN Productions, also on YouTube and Twitter, ANPSean. So once again, thank you guys, and I will catch you next time.